Hello, this is News Compass. On 8th April 2019, the Federation of Kenya Employers, FKE, were in court to obtain an extension of court order suspending the implementation of the levy up to the 20th of May 2019, when the case will come up again for mention and further directions. This was followed by the notice by the Minister of Transport, Infrastructure, Housing, Urban Development and Public Works in conjunction with the Kenya Revenue Authority, KRA, giving room to implement the Housing Fund levy. In 2018, the KOTU, that is, moved to court accusing the government of rejecting plans to constitute a tripartite board of government employers, workers to ensure transparency and accountability of the fund. But is this realizable with an estimated 11% unemployment rate compared to the global average of 5.7%? And what about its viability when 74% of employees in the formal sector in Kenya earn less than 50,000? Implying that mortgages are out of their reach? And does the government of the Republic of Kenya understand the needs and the capacity of local developers and formulate policies accordingly? We'll get to a panel in a moment, but first, our reporter sets up our discussion with this report.
COFEC officials have strongly rejected the proposed housing levy, saying it's not a priority in Kenya as there are much more imperative pressing concerns affecting the country. Some of the issues that came out strongly in COFEC's argument are drought, health challenges, unmet expectations on NHIF, rising cost of living, among other issues. The Ministry of Works recently released a directive that employees contribute 1.5% mandatory contribution beginning the 9th of May 2019. It stated both the employer and the employee will play part towards the affordable housing scheme, provided that the sum of the total monthly contribution does not exceed 5,000 Kenyan shillings. In their argument, COFEC disputed the new house levy project, saying the move will lead to escalation of unemployment as many employers will look for alternatives to cut down their staff. Under the same argument, COFEC's position is that the project does not guarantee all contributors a chance to get houses after investing. Similarly, they argue that the fund will be unfair, oppressive and discriminatory. Others who will be affected, according to COFEC, are among them those who own houses, those retiring or about to retire, people living with disability, senior citizens, low-income earners, as well as the terminally ill workers. This comes as Kenyans Online rejected the new housing levy, citing lack of inclusivity. Many came out to express their frustrations across social media with the hashtag #ResistHousingFundLevy.
And now we get the nitty-gritties and the details to that effect. Joining me in the next 30 minutes or so is Charles Omanga, the KOTU, that is Central Organization of Trade Unions, Chief Legal Advisor, to seek his sentiments on why his organization, or the organization he does represent in court, is seen as, of course, expressing definitive silence on the matter that many Kenyans have expressed uncertainty over, and the echo chamber of public views amid an uncertain future over what next for millions of Kenyans with regards to this project. Charles Omanga, thank you so much, my brother, for joining me.
Thank you.
I do appreciate your time. Well, first thing is first, in 2018, you moved to court to challenge the levy, that is 1.5% of workers' gross salaries. And of course, this comes at a time when Kenyans are reluctant to this. And this is what Mr. Atwoli, the KOTU Secretary, did say at the time. And he said, until we know the rules of the game that will affect our 2.5 million workers, we will not allow any deductions to that effect. This will be only way to hold the executive accountable for their actions and or omissions in the housing plan. Moving forward, fast forward to today, it appears that there's some sort of passiveness about this. We'll come to the mathematics later, but does KOTU still maintain the same position?
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to at least interact with Kenyans on this very weighty matter. First things first, we moved to court indeed in December last year challenging the implementation and deduction of the 1.5% housing levy. And indeed, we had quite a number of issues and concerns as to what informed our moving to court. One, as our able Secretary General had pointed out, was that there was no transparency regarding how this fund be administered. And at that time, and even now, we are aware and alive to the fact that Kenyans are overtaxed, and therefore, any other tax is something that must be absolutely necessary and must be agreed through a consultative process, whereby issues like transparency, the administration of the funds is put on the table. And therefore, we indeed obtained an court order on the 19th of December 2018. Okay. And therefore, Federation of Kenya Employers also went to court and also obtained an order, and FKE was not challenging the deductions. FKE was challenging the constitution, the establishment of the National Housing Advisory Board, that indeed the government advertised that the employer should nominate 3 representatives, Court to Kenya should nominate 3 representatives, KNUT, and even the government. And that board was to actually now oversee the implementation of this process. Thereafter, we indeed went to court because the concern that Kotu had was that where does the government going to get this 1.5%? Because remember, in the May 1st last year, the government indeed gave a minimum wage increment of 5%. Up to that point, when we went to court, the government had not implemented or gazetted that with 5% wage increment. Then thereafter, we entered into negotiations with the government that, look here, the Kenyans have already been overburdened by various taxes. Where are you going to get this 1.5% from? And indeed, the government on the 8th of January this year, based on our negotiations, and I want also to inform Kenyans, the spirit of negotiations is always based on one key principle. That is the principle of give and take. That is why you remember sometimes in May 1st, there is a year whereby the government can increase the minimum wage, and some year you don't get it. You cannot go crying on the rooftops that the government has not managed to award. Therefore, we negotiated with the government. It was a negotiated process. And what was shocking that I would also want to respond to when I watched the CEO of Federation of Kenya Employers, that is Madam Jacqueline Mugo, saying that they were not aware of any processes. It should be remembered that Jacqueline Mugo and FKE just joined case as an interested party. An interested party is only interested in the outcome of the matter. And therefore, there cannot be a situation whereby an interested party is trying to mutate to become a petitioner. And therefore, what Kotu did, we negotiated with the government. We said, okay, if you have to deduct, then give workers money. And indeed, on the 8th of January 2019, His Excellency, the President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, indeed gazetted officially the 5% wage increment. Therefore, we said, okay, well, if you have given workers a 5% increment that we've really negotiated for a very long, over 15 months, then now it would be now possible, because now we know where you are getting this 1.5% from. So we said, either way, if the government has gazetted the 1.5% wage increment, then they can deduct it now from the 5%, and the employee still remains with 3.5% that he did have.
Having mentioned all that, then, Wana Omanga, do you mean then that Jacqueline Mugo's institution, that is the Federation of Kenya Employers, has not been in this case good-hearted?
Yes, actually, because you see, if FKE moved to court to challenge the establishment of the advisory council, they had all the rights and opportunity to also challenge the deductions. Now, overnight, they went ahead and they withdrew their matter. We don't know what informed the withdrawal of their matter. They also obtained an order challenging the establishment of the board. We had issues of how is this fund going to be administered? Who are going to sit on this board? you remember we have NSSF, between NHIF, NSSF. These are tripartite bodies that we've had challenges, and we had to fight each and every time we are in courts to ensure that we protect workers' money.
Okay.
Court has always been on the forefront trying to protect the interests of Kenyan and the vulnerable workers.
Okay.
So we were also saying that this housing levy, because this is not a new thing. Remember, the Constitution under Article 43 talks about accessible and adequate housing.
Okay.
And Jacqueline Mugo was also saying that it is not the work of the government to provide, on whose responsibility. Article 21 of the Constitution talks about the state shall take appropriate policy and legislative measures to ensure that the rights under Article 43 are realized.
Okay, then
that one put the role of providing adequate housing on the government. So you can't say the government doesn't have a role in providing affordable and adequate housing.
Okay. Oh, having mentioned that, the government has a sole responsibility constitutionally bestowed upon that, the authority given to the Kenyan public. And while they do serve the public indirectly through the constitution, because millions of Kenyans cannot represent themselves, that's why Kenya is a constitutional democracy. But having mentioned the fact about the equality and the economic status, that the 1.5 can only be applicable or implementable in the sense that the government does raise the 5%, as the president did pledge. But however, the numbers do say otherwise. In Kenya, for instance, the paper, that is the South African, did reach such a conclusion. An average mortgage size in Kenya is about 9.1 million. That's about $91,000 with an interest rate of 13.5% and a tenure of 12 years, translating into a monthly mortgage payment of Kenya shillings 130,700, about $1,307, which is unaffordable to 90% of Kenyans. And
you see, that is why the government comes with this alternative process. Instead of going for that very expensive mortgage where you have to pay within 12 years and you are paying almost over 1,000 plus US dollars, an equivalence of over 100,000 Kenya shillings. And you remember most Kenyans do not even earn more than 50%. Majority of mid-level salary, 50,000. 50,000. That is even below the mortgage. Yes. So the government has come with an alternative route. There are so many questions that the Kenyans will always ask, and we are also asking these fundamental questions. But one thing that we should not be lost in us, that this is not only something that is unique to Kenya. Remember, currently, as we said today, over 1.2 billion people need housing. And it is projected by around 2030, there will be 3 billion people, 3 billion, not 3 million. Across the globe, that would need housing. And this is a process that has been implemented elsewhere. It has been implemented in Singapore. Indonesia is doing it. 80%. India, in the city of Mumbai, in Chennai, they are doing it. In Lima, Peru, they are doing it. In Mexico, they are doing it. In Colombia, they are doing it. So it is in Nigeria, they are doing it. So it is not something that is unique to Kenya. All these countries have these challenges. COFEC is now all of a sudden has woken up, I don't know from which hole they have emerged, and now saying that they are now on the forefront trying to champion the rights of Kenyan workers. What we are saying is, and even we are less than 2 weeks to May 1st. May 9th. We are even right now negotiating with the government, if possible, because of those issues that Kenyans are pressing Kenyans, the drought, the hunger, the unemployment, so that the government can we are requesting the government to give Kenyans over 40%. If the president, even if we negotiate, the way I said, is a matter of give and take. Even if we negotiate with the government and the President Uhuru Kenyatta also see it wise to give Kenyan workers even 25% or even 20%, then there would be no weight that Kenyan will feel, because if you are being deducted 5,000, the government has added you close to 12,000 on your salary. Then what we asked was that, where does government going to get this 1.5%? If they provide it, then they get their 1.5%, you remain with your 12%, and life moves on. Given that you have mentioned some of the models that are worthy of emulation, for instance, in Singapore, apparently, this is according to a report that I did extract from the Singapore Council, that is the city of Kuala Lumpur. Today, as we speak, in contemporary Singapore, 90% of land is owned by the state, as opposed to 49% was in 1965. There's great emphasis on what the government has done in ensuring that 80% of the population lives in a government-funded housing program. Now,
But they have also ensured that they do put into tasks or in place the factors that among them is the importance of neighborhood, the smart use of urban city. And among one of the best issues that they did mention in the paper is, of course, the affordability of land, which is a headache in Kenya. How does the government need to replicate what's happening in Singapore, despite not wanting now to force this down the throat of Kenyans? Because the minister, the CS, at the end of the day did say it's like a lottery program. 2.5 million Kenyans will have nothing to show off if 500,000 houses are constructed by 2022 when the president term will end. So where will Kenyans go even after the contribution?
Let me tell you, my friend, it is not that everybody must get the housing in the first phase. This is a process that is continuing. And even by that time, by the end of the first phase of the 500,000 units, not everybody shall have managed to accrue or to manage to have deducted money that is enough to qualify him or her for a house. Therefore, this is a progressive process that must be started. It is not that the government can wake up today and construct 10 million houses. But it is not possible. And we don't have to adopt the model of Singapore. Okay. What we are saying, so that we don't lose focus about what we are talking about, is that we had, Kenyans have an issue with this housing levy. Not only in terms of where are they getting the money, but even in terms of the administration of this fund. And that is why the government started that we must make also this board a tripartite board like NSSF, whereby the employers that are contributing, they are on the table. The workers that are being deducted, they have a representation on that board. The government itself have a representative on the board, so that in any event that there's something that is not going right, and there's so many other issues, but we are talking about even the tribunal. What if there is any failure or there is any dispute arising out of this entire process? Okay. How would those disputes be resolved? Who will be responsible? Would it be the government still trying to again adjudicate on those issues? There is issues of audit processes. Should this be a standalone fund, just like NSSF? Is there any need to get it out of the Housing Act? There's so many issues, and there's a myriad of questions that should be answered. Not only to be focusing on the issue of 1.5%.
Okay, Bwana Wakili, then the problem here is that the fear is that experts have also casted a cloud of uncertainty about the entire process, saying that it might fail to take off effectively. And because they do also cite out some citations here. They do say that in a paper compiled an editorial note that, for instance, the Kenya Slum Upgrading Program, that is SUP, that developed low-income housing in Kibra, the World Bank funded railway relocation development, the Catholic-led Mathare 4A, 4B home ownership scheme as well as the Kenya Informal Settlements Infrastructure Project, all failed because of what they say was deemed from the onset lack of participation and what they say was a poorly designed policy by the government.
That's very true. Indeed, there is a lot of policy issues that are attached to this entire affordable housing project. And why, you should also go back to interrogate. It is not about only a question of policy. And it is not only about a question of public participation. You said this is a World Bank funded project. Some of these projects, for example, the Kibera, the Catholic Mathare 4A housing scheme, there was an allocation that they gave, and then it could not continue to build those houses. The World Bank funded project, there is an amount that they gave to the government. That one was not able to build houses across the country, so that we address the issues of affordable housing. So the government, what is important is that they were seeing how can this issue of affordable housing to be made sustainable, so that it is not a process that is saying today we have a budgetary allocation, next year the government has not allotted any money towards this project. So those are some of the questions and the challenges that those other schemes are faced. And more importantly, my brother, always the question of public participation is a very key fundamental constitutional principle, whereby anything that is done that is going to interfere by any way by the rights of the people or going to disrupt any process that touches on the lives of people, then the people themselves must be consulted. Okay. The public participation in itself does not necessarily mean that you have to go knocking on each and every person's door to ask him what does he think.
There can be sampling representation.
Yes, there is sampling representation. We have elected representatives when they debate in Parliament, and this thing was gazetted. The notices or the memorandum was published in the dailies so that people can bring their views. And the members of Parliament debated this thing. It was not something that was just woke up one day and then the government pushed it. And we agree from the workers' perspective that there is serious tax issues and the high cost of living that must be addressed. And this is something that is here with us. It doesn't deter or prevent or prohibit anyone from going to court. Each and every person has a right to go to court and have a locus to appear before the courts and seek any redress as regarding to any fundamental rights that is being violated. So it doesn't stop anyone. And I must also clear here that there is this question that, Kotu is sitting now with the government, there is Kotu now has withdrawn the case. The case is still,
in court. It's still in court. Agreed on
that. And mention is next month on 20th. And even the temporary orders that were issued by the court the other day through the case that were filed by COFEC, the judge directed that I've issued this temporary to allow for consolidation so that all parties, the COFEC, FKE was joined as interested party in the Kotu case, Kotu itself, we will still have an opportunity if there is any outstanding issues. And that one does not stop negotiations.
Negotiation, of course. I've listened to a lot of experts about this, but the problem is that apparently there are big hurdles standing in the way of that, despite the case is still being in court. Of course, we are circumspecting around the nitty-gritties because that is a matter in court. However, the mood music in the country is not good. Charles Omanga, let's take a quick break here on the program. When we come back, we'll take a look at why the private sector in the country is also expressing fear and saying that this has instilled fear in us because it's not profit-making process. And as we head towards the last minutes of the program here on News Compass, keep tweeting, keep texting. 40975 is the SMS short code, and equally you can join the conversation on Twitter. The hashtag is News Compass. We are coming back after the short break here on the program. All right, thank you so much. Welcome back to the program. You are still watching News Compass. Of course, the hashtag is News Compass. 40975 is the SMS short code, and you can equally be part of the conversation on Twitter and our other social media platforms. Equally, this conversation is live on our website, that is at Ebru TV. That is www.ebrutv.co.ke. Still with Charles Omanga, lawyer, representing, of course, the legal chief of the Central Organization of Trade Union. Its secretary is Francis Atwoli. Brother, before we went on break, there was an issue I raised about the need for the cooperation or the intertwinement of the government and the private sector here, because it largely funds the housing project in the country. While the government is now or wants to venture into this business in ensuring that every Kenyan gets modest and decent house, there appears to be hurdles on the way and a long, perhaps, route that needs to be, of course, taken or pursued by the government. But equally, many countries, while they try to copy or emulate, trying to seek some energy from the Singapore model, apparently what happened is that they have failed dismally, owing that some of the other government pledges have failed to or has pulled back from what it pledged in 2017. Are we likely going to record any astonishing success story about this entire housing project?
There is always any new project must have challenges. We cannot say that we would not run into challenges, and we cannot witness some failures in the process. I'm not expert in the construction, but one thing that I must inform you, my brother, is that note that we must adopt the Singapore model. Each and every country has its uniqueness, issues of how much land is owned by the government and how much land is in the private sector, and even more importantly, the role of private sector in development. There is something that I wanted to bring in. When the government announced the minimum wages, the employers are always the people that always oppose that people should not be unnecessary because they are profit-oriented. You've mentioned about the issue of that this project is not profit-making. It should not always be that every problem must be profit-driven. And that is why the CEO of FKE conveniently avoided to tell Kenyans that the minimum wage was gazetted in January, and therefore you are going to have a wage increment. He remained quiet about that, She is aware, and even whenever we are in with government negotiations so that people can be wage can be increased, FK is always on the table. And this private sector people and the Federal Kenya employer is always against increment and giving Kenyans a decent wages. And therefore, she cannot come out and now conveniently and try to get some political capital out of this issue while avoiding to tell Kenyans some very, very superordinate issues regarding this entire process. Okay. And each and every country must note, we can only borrow. What lessons can we learn from the Singapore experience? What lessons can we learn from Peru experience? What lessons can we learn from Regiaja in Indonesia? What lessons can we learn from the Mumbai experience? Yeah. So that when we put this thing together and all these cocktails of challenges, then we would be able to discern that as regarding our circumstance and as a country, now what can we improve concerning the challenges that was faced in Mexico. So it is why people fail is that we want to pretend that we can do the Singapore model. We can borrow and see how can we blend it to ensure that the process and the project takes into account our contemporary situation and challenges. Understanding. When we have that grounding, then we would be able to know that this is the right direction. We have NSSF. Various governments go even into Tanzania, our neighbors here. The government goes even into partnership with institutions like NSSF. They build roads. The government partner with NSSF. They enter into an agreement. They build roads using the workers' money. The government returns this money. We are not an exception. We can also see how best can we blend this and even see how can we marry, can we establish any nexus between the National Social Security Fund, because that one, they also have development. You remember we have TASIA, we have Nyayo, those kind of housing. We have Azina. You see, so Wakili, this is not something that we cannot say we cannot be achieved. Okay, while you mentioned that, Wakili, before we, of course, as we head towards the last minutes of the program, the other important aspect here I'd like to bring in is, of course, trying to, pick it up from that point, saying that this is not a trial and error issue or like scenario, because Kenyans have expressed uncertainty about it when the minister did outline the process as lottery. But however, equally, the Kenya Mortgage Refinance Company will lend, which will lend this and SACCOs cash to extend the inexpensive mortgages to low-income earners in the country. Therefore, it appears that this is a cobweb of an approach, but the government wants to dilly-dally along the sole partner here, going solo on the entire process. How well does it need to bring other players on board, the stakeholder situation, to have a success story and script about this entire process? When we have cobwebs, the cobwebs can be removed. Cobwebs are not concrete walls. And that is why, through this preliminary process, we must now start to see what are those cobwebs that we might run into. If there is any that is already existing, why can't we not remove the cobwebs? And more importantly, the government cannot, this is not something that we cannot say that the government want to run away with it and try to hide behind something. And I'm not yet speaking on behalf of government. I'm here speaking on behalf of the workers that we represent. But we must also be alive that because this is our nation, we must ensure, and I told you that this issue of so many issues that we talked about, the administration of this fund, those issues, there's so many legislative queries that are still attached to this entire process. And that was the issue that we must ensure, and those are some of the things that we are negotiating with the government. We must tell them, okay, first of all, you must establish the management process of this. There is the finance bill that is still before Parliament. We were even thinking, how can we now even amend so that we have express law concerning, and that is going to speak to this, the administration of this housing fund levy. There's so many issues that are still outstanding. And if there are issues that are outstanding, those are the things that we are still even talking with the government. Kenyans have a concern, first of all, we don't want to witness another looting of NSSF as it used to be. And that's the fear. And even another issue that we negotiated with the government. Remember, the representative of employers on the NSSF board took almost because when their term expired last year, the government refused to gazette Jacqueline Mugo back to the board. The government refused to gazette Francis Atuli back to the board as a court representative to ensure that the workers' money in NSSF is safe. Among the things that the government did, we told them we also have workers' money in NSSF that must be protected. The government went ahead and gazetted Jacqueline Mugo to represent for their final term in NSSF.
Is there an interest
the government also gazetted the COTU workers representative to the board.
Okay, is there then some sort of ping-ponging? Because apparently it appears that Jacqueline Mugo, according to you, is late on here, is just an interested party. You were in court in 2018. All of you are speaking in one voice. Therefore, how do you make it a unison one for Kenyan, for the Kenyan taxpayer here? Apparently, he seems or feels deprived, and many analysts, Professor Herman Manyora, our reporter, did talk to him earlier in the day, said this is deemed to fail. It's another project, another scandal in the offing. And here, the analysts do point out that Kenya faces a difficult task convincing foreign investors to help finance the planned construction of 500,000 low-cost houses in the next 5 years, saying that this perhaps might mutate into another scandal.
We've been a country of scandals. And those are some of the things that we are trying to pray so that our government must fix the issues of corruption. If the issue of corruption is the fear that Kenyans have that this money will be looted, it is upon Kenyans to ensure that the government put necessary and appropriate mechanism to ensure that Kenyans taxpayer do not lose even a single cent that has been deducted from his hard-earned salary. Others are watchmen that stand right outside. Even here we have them. Imagine such a person losing his money because some people sat somewhere and crafted an idea. And that is why COTU Kenya has been on the forefront trying to criticize and actually to even bring these audit issues into limelight. We have always complained. We have always told Kenyans about scandals in the NSSF, NHIF, and that is why this one, we cannot allow. And the leadership of COTU, which represent over 2.5 million workers in this country, cannot allow to interfere with its long-standing reputation that we are going to agree or accede to a process that in the next few years is going to turn out to be a white elephant. Never. That can never happen. And therefore, we must also inform Kenyans that whatever is happening, your government, we must talk with our government. It is our government. Okay. If we have issues and queries, we must tell the government that Kenyans have a concern that this might be another Tasia project, this might be another Azina Tower project where Kenyans lost over 5.036 billion Kenya shillings. 5.06 billion shillings Kenyans lost. And COTU stood firm, and we are the people who even questioned and called for a forensic audit, which revealed that we have lost this money. How can we be again the people that we are again advocating for a process that is going to turn out to be a white elephant? Never. That cannot happen. What is happening is we are negotiating with the government. Those loopholes must be sealed. And I can assure you that if anything that happens, you will see COTU will always be out to say no to the government.
Now, having mentioned that, you are in court and saying that we are negotiating this on behalf of Kenyans in the best interest of the millions of Kenyans who apparently in large majority or capacity do not understand what this entirely is all about. On the other end, FKE and Jacqueline Mugo does say that they are not willing to open the window of negotiation with the government. So why the disconnect? Because apparently if that continues, then this perpetual sense of course, disconnect is going to be having a fundamentally injury on, of course, what Kenyans want to see out of this. Therefore, how do you converge your energy towards the tendency of one avenue and channel of communication at the best interest of Kenyans?
I think we were in court to represent the interests of our 2.5 million workers that their money is going to be deducted, who have the fear that this could be another scandal and they could lose millions and millions. Imagine this, over 557 billion Kenya shillings per month. It means it is a huge, huge money that you cannot just say that Kenyans are ready to lose. In terms of the disconnect that we have with FK, remember, among the key issues that we say that the government must tell workers where they're going to get that 1.5%. It means Kenyans must be paid well, there must be salary increment, there must be minimum wage increment. When that happens, the employers are against that. That is why they are carefully and conveniently saying they are not going to open any window because they know one of the agreements that we have pushed the government that they must ensure that if you want to deduct workers' money, then pay them well. You must increase minimum wage. Well, if that is done, Jacqueline Mugo and Federation of Kenya Employers will always be against any salary increment because they are the people who are on those profit-minded. Everything they do is about profit maximization.
Okay.
And you see, they were always insisting that before any Kenyan worker is given any salary increment, that it must be based on productivity. We don't have Kenyans, as we sit right now, we don't have active and functional productivity centers so that we can say, let us base this on productivity. We are not Japan. Japan have effective and functional productivity centers.
Okay.
We do not have any. Therefore, our workers, our men and women in industries knows that this company has made this amount of profit. So if a company is making profit, it means that the workers that are working and toiling to ensure that these companies make profit must be added money. Federation of Kenya Employers will always be against that. That is why carefully and conveniently they are not ready to tell Kenyans that there will be added money and the government will also increase minimum wage in May 1st based on what we shall have negotiated so that the Kenyans know that it is not what you are having now that's going to be taken away from you. But the government must honor its previous pledges of minimum wage increment, and we are even negotiating for a possible 40% right now. If we get even 15%, if government decide to take 1.5% to build for Kenyans affordable housing project, so
that's fine. That's fine. Having said that, what you are also advocating for is perhaps come up with a proper module or formula to increase the pay so that you can deduct and then Kenyans will be on the playing level to even attain that, which is a decent housing. Part of course, human needs, but apparently appears to be heading in the wayward direction. Now, one last question before I let you go, Bwana Wakili. Your section, that is the organization you represent in court, did say in December that the fund meant for the building of the low-cost houses has the makings of a scam, or rather a scandal. It's not clear what the role of employers and workers will play in the management of the fund. Can I put it to you in this way then? Do you harbor, or is that fear instilled in you in the sense that the ruling Jubilee Party at the moment is characterized by febrile hysteria and utterly unproductive nature, pulling back of some of its mega pledges in 2017 and some in 2013. We see now the other three items of the big four agendas of the president: the healthcare coverage, the status of the infrastructure across health centers in the country is appalling. You look at the manufacturing and because of taxes and the cost of production, investors are fleeing away. There's capital flight. We recently saw Samsung and Aliko Dangote relocating to Ethiopia, which is a rival country, economically giant in the continent because of its numbers. And then the other item is about agriculture, the collapse of Galana Kulalu project, 7 billion Kenya shillings up in the air, Kenyan taxpayers' money. And the company did pull out, saying that there was frustration from the Kenyan officials or government officials. Are you harboring that fear too, in the sense that this might also be heading in the same direction? We are also Kenyans and we harbor those fears. That is why I told you that we must ensure that this newborn baby, this pregnancy that has been conceived does not give the mother problems. And you remember, better the water spilled than the pot broken, because a sound pot can still return to the stream and fetch water. So what we are saying, we have witnessed scandal, the issues of universal health care. KOTU is in the forefront when we said that when the government brought that even people in high school must be covered under NHIF. Then we told them, but never touch workers' money. Create a separate account whereby you will have to deposit that money for those students in school. We did say that with the Social Security Fund for people who are above 65 years old. We told them, don't mix workers' money in NSSF that are meant for development and retirement so that somebody can come back and claim his benefit in pretext that you want to put the money for the elderly in Social Security Fund. So it means we have questions about these issues. And that is why we are happy that the new sheriffs in town, Nurdin Haji, the DCI, and the EACC are following up on those corrupt officials that made Galana Kulalu project fail, that made any other projects fail. The DCI and the government is on them. And before we deliver this baby, we must
ensure that those outstanding issues and questions that the Kenyans are asking,
Okay.
for us as a workers representative organization,
Okay.
we will always stand firm as we have always done before.
Okay.
And remember these scandals they are talking about. And 75% of these
Okay.
issues, it is court that has always brought them in the line through our Secretary General.
Okay.
Therefore, we must also assure Kenyans
Okay.
that all those outstanding issues, if the government will not be able to give Kenyans the appropriate and satisfactory answers,
Okay.
Kotu Kenya will not be a party to it, and we can never support government where workers, our main
Okay.
responsibility to ensure the safety of Kenyan workers.
And it's on that note then we end. Charles Omanga, Kotu Chief Legal Officer, asante sana. Thank you for gracing us with your time here on the program. And of course, that's where we end the program tonight here on Ebru Television. Of course, we thank you for being part and parcel of the program from the onset, the primetime news, and now News Compass, having the healthy discussion about the way forward of the housing project in the country. One of the items of the President Big Four agenda. We cherish and thank you for watching tonight and making time for the program. I am Ayub Abdikadir Abde from the team here in Lavington. We'll see you next week by the grace of God for the same program, different guests and different topic, depending on the, of course, developments in the week. And of course, we'll see you then by the grace of God. Good night.